Run. Welcome to the July 25th, 2018 Delhi Township Trustee Meeting. We will open the meeting as usual with a Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. Tonight's moment of silence is in honor of some people near and dear to me. First is Tom Kostopoulos, longtime co-owner of Delhi Chili. Tom is survived by his wife Rose, daughters Jenny and Chrissy and their spouses, and 6 grandchildren. Tom didn't know a stranger and made everyone feel welcome at the business.
Yes, and we'd also like to add a very personal loss this week. Marilyn Kreidenweiss, the mother of our own trustee Rose Sturts. So we would like to extend our condolences to the Sturts family. Marilyn was the mother of 4, the grandmother of 9, and the great-grandmother of 17. And from what we have learned from Rose, she was the matriarch of the family, full of fun, camping, cooking, you name it. And we certainly extend our prayers and condolences to Rose and her family.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, everyone.
Madam President,
Yes.
we also acknowledge Janet and Mike Rosenthal. I know Mike and Janet, you've been involved with Citizens on Patrol and the Citizens Police Academy and longtime ambassadors for the township. I know Mike lost his mom, so our condolences also go out to you.
Sorry about that, Janet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Wow, lots of news. Let's hope we can get some good stuff from now on. Okay, so we'll have the approval of the minutes, please, Mr. Luby.
Motion 2018-139, approve the minutes from the Board of Trustees meeting held on July 11th, 2018, and dispense with the reading.
I move motion 2018-139.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes, motion passes.
Motion 2018-140, approve bills for payment.
I move motion 2018-140.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes, motion passes.
Motion 2018-141, approve the payment of overtime for pay period ending July 17th, 2018.
I move motion 2018-141.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes, motion passes. Report from the fiscal officer, please.
Resolution 2018-123, resolution approving purchase order obligations incurred on behalf of the township by the township administrator, authorizing payment of certain purchase order obligations and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of the resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution?
I move to dispense with the second reading of this resolution.
I second the motion to dispense with the second reading of the resolution.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Luby, please call the roll.
Mrs. Sturts?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Resolution passes. Trustee correspondence.
I was just going to significant
Sorry, I
transactions.
forgot your significance, sorry.
On July 19th, we had $41,000 in deposits from the local government fund and gasoline tax. We received $19,000 on July 24th for the permissive motor vehicle license tax. And on July the 12th, our payroll was $265,000. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Now we have trustee correspondence. Trustee Seavey.
Yes, just a couple of things. The first is MSD is back checking the creeks and the streams. So any of us who live on properties that are, on kind of surrounded by the creeks and the ponds and the lakes and the streams, you may see a truck pull in after what they call a significant rain. So last Friday night, the trucks were out and they were measuring the water. So just don't get alarmed. They're going to be here through October doing this. And then secondly, we do have a happy note.
Yay.
Yay! Happy birthday to George Robin. Happy 90th birthday. George has been a real column of strength inside Delhi for many years, and we want to wish him just the best of 90 years.
Happy birthday, Birdman.
Birdman.
Trustee Davis.
No, not at this time.
Okay, for myself, I did receive an email from a gentleman, a resident, who people have been parking where their cars are crossing the sidewalks, and it is not allowed, and it's causing people who are walking their children, or children walking on the sidewalk, or, just walking in general. So please be cognizant of that and park in proper parking spaces. Thank you. Okay, so then we move on to administration, please.
Resolution 2018-124, resolution declaring certain property no longer needed for public use, obsolete, and unfit for the use acquired, authorizing sale by internet auction, and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second.
Any discussion on this resolution?
No? Okay. I move to dispense with the second reading of this resolution.
Second the motion to dispense with the second reading of the resolution.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
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 Mr. Libby, please call the roll.
Mrs. Sturts?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2018-125, resolution declaring certain items of personal property unfit for the use acquired, that the items have no value, authorizing disposal thereof, and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
Second the adoption of the resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution?
I move to dispense with the second reading of this resolution.
Second the motion to dispense with the second reading of the resolution.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Libby, please call the roll.
Mrs. Sturts?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
A motion 2018-142, proclaiming Thursday, August 2nd, 2018, as skirt game, tailgate, party, and Delhi Night Out in Delhi Township.
I move motion 2018-142.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes. I'll read the proclamation now, and we will also present it and read it that night on stage. Proclamation, Skirt Game Tailgate Party and Delhi Night Out Day. Whereas the Delhi Skirt Game Committee will host its 8th annual Skirt Game Tailgate Party on Thursday, August 2nd, 2018 at Delhi Remke Market. And whereas to coincide with the tailgate party for the 6th year in a row, Delhi Township will host Delhi Night Out, a community outreach opportunity meant to increase awareness about local government and the public safety services and programs that are offered. And whereas this collaborative effort, which kicks off the Delhi Skirt Game, demonstrates the partnership between local government and local organizations working together for the betterment of the community and its citizens. Now therefore be it proclaimed, we, the elected officials of Delhi Township, would like to recognize the Skirt Game Committee as a great community partner and for expanding their fundraising efforts to include this community event. And that's for the tailgate party. And we'll go on to the next motion.
Motion 2018-143, proclaiming Friday, August 3rd, 2018, as Delhi Skirt Game in Delhi Township.
I move motion 2018-143.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes, motion passes. And that proclamation reads, Proclamation Delhi Skirt Game Day. Whereas the Delhi Skirt Game Committee will host its 41st annual charitable softball game on Friday, August 3rd, 2018 at Delhi Park. And whereas profits from this event are given to persons who are in desperate need of financial assistance due to some unfortunate accident, injury, illness, or handicap. And whereas for many years, local celebrities, businesses, and organizations have made this event very successful and the largest attended community affair in Delhi Township. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed, we, the elected officials of Delhi Township, would like to recognize the members of the Skirt Game Committee, the community, and many volunteers for making this event a successful year after year. So at this time, I'd like to invite Mike DeMoss, who is co-chair. Is that your title? Okay. Wife's assistant, and his wife is the chairperson.
Thank you. First off, I'd like to apologize for Sherry not being here. She got stuck at her other full-time job. So she is, would love to be here, obviously, but she got stuck at work. So basically, we just want to thank you guys. We appreciate all you guys do. I actually said something the other day to somebody saying that we couldn't do this without the support of you guys, the trustees. So we appreciate everything you guys do for us to help us along the way. Of course, Chief Campbell, Chief Howarth, Fire Department, Police Department, and of course, Josh with the parks. Appreciate all you guys do to help us get through this and make it a great event every year. Just as a reminder, the tailgate is Thursday, 6 to 10. Bourbon Road Band will be back again, volunteering their time and their services, which is awesome that they do it for free. And then 5 to 11 is the Skirt Game, Model Behavior will be back. And then 10 p.m. is the fireworks by Queen City Pyro. So I just want to thank you guys. We appreciate everything you guys do. We really do.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
many, many hours of the many, many people who make this happen.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate you coming in tonight. Thank you. Good luck. Pray for good weather. All right, Parks and Recreation.
Resolution 2018-126, resolution entering into the Capital Improvement Community Park Recreation Conservation Project pass-through grant agreement with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources for the Delhi Township Bicentennial Pavilion, Project HAMI-030C, appointing officers and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of the resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution, Mr. Torbeck?
This is just an agreement with ODNR, who will be administrating the grant that we received from the state of Ohio. We're getting a performance stage at Delhi Park, and this will be completely funded through grants and donations raised through the bicentennial celebration. So, exciting project, and it's come through hard work of many organizations and people. So we're excited about that. It's something we expect to start end of summer, early fall, and get done sometime this year. So hopefully next year we get to send it off with a big bang. So we're excited.
Okay.
I move to dispense with the second reading of this resolution.
Second the motion to dispense with the second reading of the resolution.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Libby, please call the roll.
Mrs. Sturts?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2018-127, a resolution authorizing an agreement with the Muscular Dystrophy Association for Mary's Marathon MDA Carnival at Delhi Park on Saturday, August 25th, 2018, authorizing the park director to execute the agreement and dispensing with a second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of the resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution, Mr. Torbeck?
It's our first year with MDA. We'll get out a full advertisement of everything that's going to be involved. It's just a neat event. They reached out to us. They wanted to partner with Delhi Park. They had done something in the past, just real small, and they enjoyed it, so they wanted to kind of make an open event to the public. So we'll get an advertisement out here real soon, kind of detailing everything that's involved. But it sounds like a neat event for everybody. So
So I'm assuming MDA is muscular dystrophy.
correct.
Okay.
I move to dispense with the second reading of this resolution.
Second the motion to dispense with the second reading of the resolution.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
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 Mr. Libby, please call the roll.
Mrs. Sturts?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Motion 2018-144, approve the rehiring of Leo P. Moran as event custodian in the Parks and Recreation Department at the rate of $12 per hour, effective on August 3rd, 2018.
I move motion 2018-144.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion passes. Welcome back, Leo. Okay, Fire Department.
Resolution 2018-128, resolution to proceed with the submission of the question of levying an additional tax in excess of the 10 mil limitation for the purpose of fire protection and emergency medical services, revised code 57.05.03, 5705.19, 5705.191, and 5705.25.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the motion, or excuse me, second the adoption of the resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution? Chief Campbell.
Thank you very much, trustees. As you're aware, we're in the fifth year of our current levy cycle. It was designed to be a 5-year levy. What we're looking for tonight is a request of additional revenue in the terms of operational levy in the amount of 3.45 mil. In order so that we can continue to provide the terrific service that our residents have come to expect and they really deserve. It's difficult. We realize we don't exist in a vacuum in terms of providing the service. There's a lot of challenges within the community. It's never easy to ask for more money. But essentially, we've kind of come to the point in our service that in order to proceed any further, we're looking for additional funds. Personnel costs are the greatest percentage of what my operation and expenses entail. I'm looking at anywhere between 83-85% just in personnel costs when I look to train those individuals, equip those individuals, make sure that they can do their core mission work. It's closer to 90-95% of my budget. So to provide the service, it's about our number one resource, and it's the fire personnel that we have every day out on the street. This levy that we're requesting would fund 3 additional full-time paramedics. It would allow our service to continue with more strength in terms of our coverage, not putting ourselves in an area where we're going to be challenged more with the part-time staffing that we've been dealing with since 2014. And essentially, this levy would be designed to go another 5 years. So, do you have any questions?
Yeah. Doug, I just want to say, I have worked with the fire's budget since 2005. I know that you run a very lean, mean machine. And I also know that it's a tough act to balance between the service and the economic environment. And what has happened is both have gone up. The economic environment involved with our fire department when it comes to personnel costs, not only the labor, but the insurances, the medical care, and also the cost of what we need to protect those who protect us, meaning all of their turnout gear and their necessary equipment. I don't think there's anything we could invest more than to protect their lives as they're protecting ours. I've watched this budget, and I am confident in the numbers that you've given. I am pleased to see that after all these years, we are still right in line. The environment that's changed in the fire department is this shift in the manpower from our part-time bench, I used to call them, that we could call up, and the full-time. That being said, there's been a huge swing in what it costs us to have the full-time firefighters, and we are in very dire need of putting on those 3 additional paramedics. This is what Delhi deserves. Hopefully everyone can understand the toughest thing we do as a board is to ask for additional money. But in this case, we have such confidence in the numbers that it's a good program and it needs to continue. And when we think about the fact that our little Delhi Township Fire Department is rated what's called an ISO 2, we are in the top 5% of all fire departments in the United States. I think that's something to be very proud of, and it's something that I want to see the township continue. My vote's yes.
Trustee Davis.
Thank you. Chief, thank you for your time, and it's not just you, but I know you have others behind you that are crunching numbers and trying to get everything together. I'm a lifelong resident of the township, been here for 53 years, and one of the things that I have personally experienced, and I think many out here, probably within the sound of my voice and beyond, have experienced having to call 911 for some type of situation that's going on. And I can tell you, one of the things and that I think stands second to nobody are our safety services, the police and the fire. They're outstanding. When you call 911, you know someone's going to be there, within 4.5 minutes. When someone is laying next to you not breathing, I'll tell you what, that is a long 4.5 minutes, or maybe even sooner that someone can get there. So that to me is worth every bit of protecting, and it is certainly an honor to live in a township where we know the safety services are being top 5%. That is pretty incredible. Like everything else, pay-to-play type of a things. We know that people have so much disposable income, and we get that. But I think safety services is something to where, it's worth every penny. And when you go out and about and you hear people and you talk about Delhi, one of the most positive comments that I ever hear is about an experience that they had with the police or the fire. And that is so awesome to hear that people are appreciative. And like I said, you go to several other jurisdictions, or if you know people that live not slamming the city or anything like that, if you ever had an incident in the city, tell me how long you waited for someone to show up, or something that happened to you waiting for a police officer, because they respond to run after run after run. And we here in Delhi have that benefit. That is a gift to have that. So absolutely, and to get the additional paramedics, which are vital. So you don't just have someone show up, but you have highly trained people showing up to take care of you. That to me is invaluable. You can't put a price tag on it. So, and I know that you crunch the numbers. I know that you would only ask for what you really need. So thank you for doing that, and everyone, your entire team, and everyone that's worked with you. Thank you.
I'm glad you brought up the response time, because that is exceptional. And then, like Trustee Davis said, it's a long 4.5 minutes. Anything longer gets a little nail biting. What I do want to make sure that I'm speaking properly, but if by chance this doesn't pass, the millage will have to go up eventually.
Correct.
Okay, so if we can get this passed now, and as you know, you have my vote, public, John Q., it's going to save you money in the long run, okay? This will be less than we will have to ask for in the future to be able to keep the services that we have.
Right. This is something in terms of what's going to have the most direct impact of every person that lives, does business, travels through the community. It's something that we held a public meeting, and the feedback was exactly on par with what you expect. We like the service. We appreciate the service. We want it to continue. And realizing that expenses do go up, and the challenges that we've been facing for years, in terms of our staffing, to bring light to the situation. My bench, my part-time personnel, I had 53 at one point in time. And of those 53, I had 21 paramedics that were able to step up in the place of a firefighter, the full-time firefighter that was off injured, sick. Today, I have 3. So it speaks volumes to the conditions that have changed. I'm proud of how Delhi has responded, obviously, with the elected officials and hearing our warnings and it really helping us meet those challenges. It's encouraging that, I'm really proud of the service that we provide here. The folks that we work with, some of the finest emergency personnel around. And it's fortunate. I tell people the one thing that's the difference is to serve in a community that appreciates you just as much as you enjoy serving. It's fabulous. And not every firefighter has that opportunity to work in a community like that. So that speaks volumes of where we're at with Delhi in terms of the service. And I just can't reiterate enough. We realize it's just something that's difficult to ask, and it's a challenge, but it's something that, because it has such a significant impact, in order to continue to provide the service it's needed. If it does not pass, the reality is we won't be having a conversation about having more additional paramedics, because it would go up just to be the same. So that's difficult in light of that. So passing at this millage with 3 additional full-time paramedics to serve the community versus waiting a year or failing and having to ask the community for more just to stay afloat. My recommendation is we go with that plan, 3.45.
And this will be on the November ballot.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Luby, I believe you have some...
We've been discussing this levy for probably over the last year amongst ourselves and the FAB members as well. And we knew that personnel was going to be a significant portion of this levy. So I have reviewed Doug's projections, and I do believe that they're reasonable. And Doug, if you could just pass along, what do you think what the cost is per 100,000?
So at a 3.45 mil, the cost per 100,000 is $120.75 annually, basically $10 a month per 100,000.
Worth every penny. Yeah, 10 additional dollars for a $100,000 house, just to have that assurance, yeah.
Mr. Cameron.
I just wanted to offer a bit of clarification, but I thank Chief for all his hard work. This is something we've talked about for a while, and it's a daunting thing to propose and move forward. But Chief mentions adding 3 paramedics. We're not really adding 3 paramedics. We're moving the part-time to 3 full-time roles, because the part-time ranks they're not there anymore. So we're not adding personnel, we're just shifting to 3 full-time paramedics. I just want to clarify that.
Okay.
Is that considered an upgrade?
I guess it depends on who you hire.
Exactly. I move to dispense with the second reading of this resolution.
Second the motion to dispense with the second reading of the resolution.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Luby, please call the roll.
Mrs. Sturts?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Resolution passes resoundingly.
Motion 2018-145, accept the resignation of part-time firefighter paramedic Mark E. Russo, effective July 30th, 2018.
I move motion 2018-145.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes, motion passes.
Motion 2018-146, accept the resignation of career firefighter paramedic Christopher M. Houtman Jr., effective August 5th, 2018.
I move motion 2018-146.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion 2018-147, approve the hiring of Michael P. Orlando as part-time firefighter EMT in the fire department at the rate per the collective bargaining agreement with the Delhi Firefighters Association and successful completion of the pre-employment physical, drug testing, and background check effective on July 26, 2018.
I move motion 2018-147.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes. All right.
Can I just say one thing? Congratulations to Mark Russo. This is 20 years he has spent with Delhi Township. He was sworn in part-time the same day that I was sworn in full-time. So, we kind of go way back. He has a total of 39 years in the fire service if you include his time volunteering with Max. So I just wanted to acknowledge Mark tonight. His last shift is Sunday. Family and friends will be in for a real quick dinner, and then he's planning a retirement party somewhere outside the township at some point in time. So
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Mark. Thank
you.
you.
All right, thank you. All right, Public Works, please.
Resolution 2018-129, resolution authorizing application for a grant from the Hamilton County Engineers Office for 20% licensed tax funds to assist in the cost of the 2018 street rehabilitation and repair project expenses, authorizing the Director of Public Works to execute any required documents in connection with the grant application, and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
Second the adoption of the resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution, Mr. Rippinger?
Yes, thank you, trustees. This is something we do every year. It's about $18,000, and we roll it into our paving project.
Okay.
I move to dispense with the second reading of this resolution.
Second the motion to dispense with the second reading of the resolution.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Luby, please call the roll.
Mrs. Sturts?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Resolution passes. Police Department, no agenda items tonight. Community Development, please.
Resolution 2018-130, resolution certifying violation abatement expenses at 4011 Delhi Pike to the county auditor for assessment and dispensing with a second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
Hang on one second.
Hold on.
Second the adoption.
Any discussion on the resolution, Mr. DeLong?
I have no discussion on any of the resolutions related to assessments, so that'd be 130 through 134. But if you do look at the screen, you will see before and after photos of the properties that we have abated.
I had to take a second look at it because we've seen that house so many times. It's
Seen it
just
a
like,
few
wow.
times, unfortunately, yep.
Yeah. There's a fence in there. Okay.
What happens when you find things when you mow, so.
Yikes.
I move to dispense with the second reading of this resolution.
Second the motion to dispense with the second reading of the resolution.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Luby, please call the roll.
Mrs. Sturts?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2018-131, resolution certifying violation abatement expenses at 4081 Delhi Pike to the county auditor for assessment and dispensing with second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption.
Any discussion on this resolution?
I move to dispense with the second reading of this resolution.
Second the motion to dispense with the second reading of the resolution.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
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 Mr. Luby, please call the roll.
Mrs. Sturts?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2018-132, resolution certifying violation abatement expenses at 4081 Delhi Pike to the county auditor for assessment and dispensing with second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
Second the adoption of the resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution?
I will say one thing real quick. There is two of them on here for this one because one was for excessive vegetation. This is for the fallen tree that decided to fall a week after we had the complaint on the excessive vegetation. So that's why you have two for the same address.
Thank you for explaining that.
You're welcome.
I move to dispense with the second reading of this resolution.
Second the motion to dispense with the second reading of the resolution.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
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 Mr. Libby, please call the roll.
Mrs. Sturts?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2018-133, resolution certifying violation abatement expenses at 4426 Delhi Pike to the county auditor for assessment and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
Second the adoption of the resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution?
I move to dispense with the second reading of this resolution.
Second the motion to dispense with the second reading of the resolution.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
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 Mr. Libby, please call the roll.
Mrs. Sturts?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2018-134, resolution certifying violation abatement expenses at 5472 Rapid Run Road to the county auditor for assessment and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
Second the adoption of the resolution.
Any discussion on the resolution?
I move to dispense with the second reading of this resolution.
Second the motion to dispense with the second reading of the resolution.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
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 Mr. Libby, please call the roll.
Mrs. Sturts?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2018-135, resolution declaring nuisance for excessive vegetation at 573 Covedale Avenue and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
Second the adoption of the resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution, Mr. DeLong?
Yeah, this property at 573 Covedale is a first-time offender. The complaint was primarily in the rear yard, but during inspection this morning, the front yard was in a similar condition, so we do request you declare it a nuisance.
All right.
I move to dispense with the second reading of this resolution.
Second the motion to dispense with the second reading of the resolution.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
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 Mr. Libby, please call the roll.
Mrs. Sturts?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2018-136, resolution declaring nuisance for accumulated debris at 990 Beach Meadow Lane and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
Second the adoption of the resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution, Mr. DeLong?
Yeah, as you can see in the photo, there is debris located at 990 Beach Meadow Lane. During inspection this morning, those trash bags were still lined up along the fence, so we do request you declare it a nuisance.
Okay.
I move to dispense with the second reading of this resolution.
Second the motion to dispense with the second reading of this resolution.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading? Yes.
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 Mr. Libby, please call the roll.
Mrs. Sturts?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2018-137, resolution declaring nuisance for accumulated debris at 327 Glenroy Avenue and dispensing with a second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I was second the adoption of the resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution, Mr. DeLong?
Yeah, during inspection this morning, the property is in the same condition as you see in the photos for 327 Glenroy Avenue, so we do request you declare it a nuisance.
I move to dispense with the second reading of this resolution.
Second the motion to dispense with the second reading of the resolution.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
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 Mr. Libby, please call the roll.
Mrs. Sturts? Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2018-138, resolution declaring nuisance for accumulated debris at 944 Willow Lake Court and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of the resolution.
Any discussion on the resolution, Mr. DeLong?
Yeah, this is a first-time offender. There was some accumulated debris located in the rear of the property at 944 Willow Lake Court. It does look like during inspection this morning there's been an attempt to clean it up, but there's still quite a bit out there, so we do request you declare it a nuisance.
I move to dispense with the second reading of this resolution.
Second the motion to dispense with the second reading of the resolution.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Libby, please call the roll.
Mrs. Sturts?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2018-139, resolution declaring nuisance for excessive vegetation and accumulated debris at 4497 Clover Hill Terrace and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
Second the adoption of the resolution.
Any discussion on the resolution, Mr. DeLong?
Yeah, this one may be a sigh of relief for some residents as we've received a lot of repeated complaints about this property. During inspection this morning, it was still in the same condition with the excessive vegetation and accumulated debris. I do want to clarify for the residents, though, when we are talking excessive vegetation, we do not handle bushes and shrubs. These are noxious weeds and grass. So there's been complaints about the rear of the property and the trees, the mature trees that have grown. There's nothing we can legally do with those at this point, but we will address what we legally can, and that is the excessive vegetation primarily in the front yard and the debris that's located throughout the property.
Was this the one that we received the email on today?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Mr. King, I saw you come in because you live just a door or two down from that. Is that what you were here about tonight, or?
No, I just came because I wanted to hear about this.
Oh, good, good. Well, it's a front burner, so obviously you see what we passed, so good. Thanks for coming in.
And that was our guest last month,
It was
that
also
last meeting.
the guest last week, and we have probably had about 7 additional complaints since the primary complaint.
Okay. At this time, can we just, for residents, can you just talk a little bit about the process, how long it takes? Because
Sure.
I know people expect it to be done immediately.
Yeah, I mean, when we get our original complaint come in, it can take 6 to 8 weeks before compliance or before we can go in and abate it. If we can get compliance ahead of time, that's great. For some of these vacant properties, that's very difficult. But basically after tonight, what we will do is we will notify the lien holders and the property owner that it has been declared a nuisance. Now, if they do not accept certified mailings, it extends it out about another week because we have to post the property, run it in the newspaper, which runs on Wednesdays. So it does drag it out. So from tonight, if we don't get any compliance, it could be another 2 to 3 weeks, unfortunately, before we are legally able to enter the property to address the issue.
But it's in the pipeline.
It's in the pipeline. I know people think we get the complaint, we can do something quickly. A lot of times people do remedy the issue, but if they're unoccupied and you don't know where the owners are, it can take quite a bit of time. So, but we do our best, and if we do get future complaints, we can knock a little bit of time off of, we don't go through the informal process,
Okay.
which is about another week we can knock off at the start. So that's a good thing. So
Thank you.
You're welcome.
One question. When the resident was here at the last meeting, he talked about rodents and wild animals. Well, what do we know about that?
yes, staff met with the health department and that resident last Friday morning at the property. There was the health department's, conclusion was there is no areas in that house that showed where rodents would be entering the property. While we were at the property, we did notice things in the vicinity of the property which may be agitating or attracting animals to come in. We did address those with the resident, and it has been resolved. But there were some issues around the property that probably weren't helping the cause either. So we're hoping after we get this resolved, we can do it. There was some broken small holes in windows, but there was no evidence of blood or animal fur or anything that would show that they had been entering the house. So the health department right now says there's no conclusion. But with the mature vegetation, the large wooded lot behind there, you're going to get animals, unfortunately. So we'll keep an eye on it the best we can and keep the health department in the loop.
Thank you.
I move to dispense with, I'm sorry, Mr. King?
Just a quick question, why has it taken almost 5 years? They've been complaining about this, and Mr. and Mrs. Osterfeld can tell you the same thing. It's been close to 5 years people have been complaining of that place. And then Ann and Don came up, I think last week, and got a little fire under the people, and they're finally doing something about it. I'm just curious of why it took so long.
Mr. DeLong, have we gotten complaints on it in the
We've had
past?
previous complaints, but we can only legally address what our codes allow us to address. So that's why we've been primarily dealing. We've dealt in the past with debris on the property, and we've dealt in the past with the excessive vegetation. So we've addressed things that we can in our process, but there's things that people complain about. If we don't have it codified in our code, we legally don't have the authority to do anything about it, unfortunately. I will say we are looking into, hopefully in the future, an exterior property maintenance code, which may address some of the additional concerns that residents have, but we don't have that in the books right now that we can even do anything about it. So our primary things that we can really do at this point is excessive vegetation and debris. And that's what that's what we address when we do get the complaints.
How do we attack the problem with that tree that's laying on the ground and growing in the backyard? You couldn't even walk in the backyard. I don't know how you folks got back there today.
Well, we climb back there. We will address any debris, fallen trees. We can address those also. But for the vegetation, if it's mature which a lot of it has become mature, there's not anything we can do at this point with it. So, but we'll address what we can. They get what? I'm sorry.
There's no way to get it moved then, legally, I mean, yeah, the vegetation, but 90% of it is vegetation.
Right. But it has to meet the definition of vegetation, and our vegetation definition is noxious weeds. So a lot of that stuff has grown mature, and it's not. Our contractors couldn't even get in there to address it because they don't have the equipment to even address it.
Well, it's gonna be a chainsaw going in.
We may have to hire you as a contractor in the future. Though. So.
All right.
I move to dispense with the second reading of this resolution.
Second motion to dispense with the second reading of the resolution.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Libby, please call the roll.
Mrs. Sturts?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2018-140, resolution declaring nuisance for excessive vegetation and accumulated debris at 408 Roebling Road and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of the resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution, Mr. DeLong?
Yeah, as you can see in the photos, there's excessive vegetation and debris at this property at 408 Roebling Row. This is a first-time offender. It is a vacant property. It was in the same condition as you see in the photos as of this morning, so we do request you declare it a nuisance.
I move to dispense with the second reading of this resolution.
Second motion to dispense with the second reading of the resolution.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Libby, please call the roll.
Mrs. Sturts?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2018-141, resolution declaring nuisance for accumulated debris at 278 Greenwell Avenue and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of the resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution, Mr. DeLong?
Yeah, this property at 278 Greenwell, this is a first-time offender. The debris looked like there's been an attempt to clean it up, but it's been added to the truck that's actually in the next case. So there was some debris still on the property this morning, so we do request you declare it a nuisance.
I move to dispense with the second reading of this resolution.
Second motion to dispense with the second reading of the resolution.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Libby, please call the roll.
Mrs. Sturts?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2018-142, resolution providing for the removal of a junk motor vehicle at 278 Greenwell Avenue and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of this resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution, Mr. DeLong?
The photo pretty much speaks for itself, except there's more debris in the back of the truck right now that was probably in the yard before. But it was still in the driveway as of this morning, so we do request you declare it a nuisance.
I move to dispense with the second reading of this resolution.
I second the motion to dispense with the second reading of the resolution.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
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 Mr. Libby, please call the roll.
Mrs. Sturts?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Resolution passes. Thank you. Okay, I have nobody who has submitted to speak. Announcement of community events, please, Mr. Libby.
The Free Friday Fishing at Clearview Lake is open now through September 28th. It runs from 7 a.m. until dusk at Clearview Lake at 5125 Foley Road. The Ice Skirt Game Tailgate Party Delhi Night Out is Thursday, August 2nd. Begins at 6 p.m. It'll be at the Delhi Remke Market at 5025 Delhi Pike. The Delhi Skirt Game is Friday, August 3rd from 5 to 11 p.m. It will be at Delhi Park at 5125 Foley Road. Delhi Farmers Market at Clearview Lake is open every other Saturday. The next date is August the 4th. Runs from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at Clearview Lake at 5125 Foley Road. The concert at Delhi Park featuring Sullivan Jansen Band is Thursday, August 16th. It begins at 7 p.m. at Delhi Park at 5125 Foley Road. The Toy Story Pajama Party in Delhi Park is Friday, August 17th at 7:30 p.m. It will be at Delhi Park at 5125 Foley Road. The Citizens Police Academy is now forming. It runs for 12 weeks from September 6th through November 22nd. The time is from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. It will be at the Delhi Administration Building at 934 Neeb Road. Applications are now being accepted for the Veterans Memorial Wall of Honor. That's all we have.
All right, thank you. Next, we're going to have a presentation. It's going to be on the Delhi Township housing study that's been done. It's going to take a few minutes for Michael Din to set up. I'd like to invite anybody who'd like to leave at this time. If you'd rather not stay for it, it may take about an hour. But we do thank you for coming, and just let you know, our next meeting is Wednesday, August 8th. But this is part of our meeting. So we're going to take a little break right now.
No,
Okay, we're back, set up, and ready for our presentation. Mr. Cameron, would you like to introduce it, please?
I certainly will. Mr. DeLong and I had been contemplating some of the different requests that would come in from developers or some of the meetings, and the Plan the Pike study that was done just prior to Mr. DeLong starting and then me getting involved, both the developers and the study talked about some residential components being something we needed to push for. So as Mr. DeLong and I would meet with folks, we would push back on them for what we thought we needed or wanted, and they would push back. And so we got into kind of a position where we needed some help figuring out what is it we should be pushing for, and the market is dictating we should be pushing for. So we talked to a few people about ways to do that and ended up finding Michael Dinn as a resource that some trusted persons pointed at. And so Michael started a study for us, and he's going to give you where he's at on that for the Delhi market. So what we hope to gain from this is an understanding of where our market's at when we're talking to folks who are looking to develop a piece of property, and they're looking to us for help with the process, help with filling gaps financially, or some combination of that. So that's what we hope to gain from Michael Dinn's work. And Greg, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I think the key thing for us too is to realize who we really are. I don't think as a township we know who we are, and unless we know who we are, we don't know what we can become. And I think a lot of the information you're going to see from Michael is a realization of what this community truly is. And so it's going to piggyback on what we can become in the future. So it's very informative. Hopefully you find it good information. And as Jack said, it's hopefully going to be a good tool for us to use in the future as we try to attract the correct developer for the correct market that we need to be going after.
Thank you. Welcome.
Well, what a great introduction. And great to be here late on the day. I know this is not typically our thinking hour. My thanks to Mr. Cameron and Mr. DeLong for a chance to serve you. Before I start, I have to commend you. I served city council across the river, and you guys are chop chop, you get things done. It took us 20 minutes to surplus a police revolver. You guys are terrific. Thank you. My name is Michael Dinn. I've been in real estate for over 30 years after a little time in the U.S. Navy. And for the last 18, I've served leadership, municipal, private, site-specific, regional-specific, and even national concerns on something I find very interesting for me, and that is the fabric of neighborhood housing. I've been in housing for 30 years. I've sold homes. I've been involved in land brokerage. I've touched everything that could be housing. But where I really learned to add value is to serve as access to a market, because this is all I do. I took not a typical approach, there's no such thing, but I took a look at your township marketplace, and I developed access to and an understanding, unbiased understanding on the fabric of your householders, your residents and neighbors, and the housing that they live in. And there's no such thing as a market in equilibrium. We've always outgrown our house. It doesn't serve us well. So the best thing ever happened to us the day we moved in. Think about your own place right now, where you'd really like to be if you could just stay in the neighborhood and build something new, let's say. So I deal in that, and I do it innocently but armed in data. And I do it with a lot of experience in a lot of other communities. So I bring with everything is confidential typically, but I bring with me, and tonight, lessons learned from standing before other trustees, other council members. I was just in Deerfield Township. I was just in Avondale doing the same kind of thing. And I talk to leadership, I talk to residents, and I help them develop an understanding. And rarely is my work anything but insightful into things you probably already know about yourself. But it's metric driven. It's not so important to tell you the narrative of who you might be, but for other people that are going to influence our township, I'll say our because I'm going to join you for an evening, developers, financiers. We have to tell them our narrative. Because if we don't, developers bring their information, what they like to build, what they built in the other township, what's easy for them. They don't ever stay in, I've developed property, this is true. We don't stay in what we built for you. So on the screen, I have forwarded to you all some excerpts of tonight's presentation. This is a working deck of some of the early outcomes. We'll add to it. I've invited your management to provide any sort of data set around infrastructure, police calls, things that you value, things that mean value to your community. Helps us tell a better tale, especially when outside folks are here. And I'll start with just some metrics. This is me looking down from a satellite, understanding and counting your township. 10,600 householders live today in your township, give or take. This is 2017 current year information from the U.S. Census, and about 20% of them rent their home. Nothing wrong with renters. In fact, 20% is a pretty typical share. Renting is, for most people, a choice. Has sometimes to do with their income, sometimes to do with their mobility, sometimes to do with, well, I just rather have less maintenance and worry. I don't want Greg to call me and say I've got a nuisance problem with weeds in my backyard. Since 2010, there's been almost no household growth, the formation of new households. Even though for most pockets of our metro market, we've seen pretty substantial growth. New households, new addresses being formed. And there's been, according to census data, and they're trending, none projected through the year 2023. Almost half of your head of householders, the head of householders, the oldest one in your house, is over the age of 55. I wouldn't call that a senior by any means. But I started to pick up right away just looking at the data that yours is an established, proud, organized bedroom community where people move here and they stay here. And that becomes apparent in some other data. Even though 47% are 55 years or older, 54%, over half, households are only one or two people in there. So we're not really a township of families or anymore. For those that own their home, which is 80% of the households, 25% had no mortgage. They own their home free and clear. You don't see that very often. And yeah, you guys are nodding, and you probably don't, Mr. Yet, when you look at just beyond the township, the other areas you influence in Green Township and even in the city of Cincinnati, nearby, there's about 7,000 rental households within 8 minutes. And 40% of those can afford to pay for rent every month $1,000 or more. And what I want to introduce is a fact that's growing throughout our nation, and it's really focused in Cincinnati because of our pride and heritage, in that renters often rent by choice, and we have for a long time, and I hope this is on the record, we for a long time thought that apartments were low-income housing. That's no longer the case. We've built those, and after the war, the big war with Robert Mitchum and Jimmy Stewart, we built apartments were fourplexes and eightplexes, and I'll count those. You don't, by the way, have any of those nearby that were meant to be affordable, cheap rentals. That's the stigma around this. And yet we see new projects being developed throughout the fabric, from Oakley, downtown, Deerfield Township, where rents start at $1,200, $1,300 a month. People can buy a home with that. They just don't want to. We can offer them a different kind of lifestyle. Okay? What I found looking at your township, you're kind of in three sectors, a western, a central, and an eastern sector. The quite affluent older households, I drove past them on my way here, concentrate in the western sector. The less affluent and younger householders are in this eastern sector, Greenwell Road, Cemetery, right about where the Plan the Pike site is. And then we also noticed that at that very center, and I've got some graphics, 4 key household segments almost intersect and live side by side. It's a vibrancy I didn't expect to find. It's an opportunity for you on that site. Township is dominated by single-family detached housing, 92% of your housing. Most of it built before 1965. 1965, I was watching Gilligan's Island on black and white television. Most higher value homes are seen in that previous western sector. Half of your 2,150 rental housing stock, housing units that are for rent, half of those are single-family detached homes. That's most of your housing stock. Another 10% we see in condominiums. Of the 40% of multifamily typical apartment sites, I've only seen half in, I see only half in 6-scale apartment sites, and I'll show you where they're concentrating in just a moment. The township, interestingly, is almost void of the typical smaller units built post-war that I mentioned earlier. And then I went back through and found everything that happened in the sale of your housing for the last 15 years, and that was picked carefully because 15 years ago on the timeline of housing, 15 years ago, 2003, we had just gone from about 11 years of sustained housing growth throughout the region and our nation. And we started this hyper period because mortgages got real easy. And anyone could buy a house in 2003 and 4 until about 2007 when we fell over our skis and we had this precipitous drop. We'll come back and talk about that in a bit. The sales in the last 15 years dominated by resales of existing homes. Not much has been built here. During the same period, only 4% of all the sales in 15 years were new construction, and a little bit more, 5% were in distressed bank sales and foreclosures. That's not bad. It's the fabric of every neighborhood. People just financially can't keep up, and the bank takes your home. Okay? So that 15-year period covers the cycle, the hypergrowth, the downturn, the muddled recovery, and what's happened since. And I'll show you that your housing market's actually quite healthy today. Yet with few attached rentals built in your community, there aren't many choices for folks to grow out of their home, or for our kids to move into a home. For older householders, excuse me, to find something that's not 30 years old with a second roof. And we haven't built much differential housing stock, so there's not much, I call it the circulation of housing, the turnover and sale of families migrating to different housing stock as they grow and get older. We don't have that much here. Housing market drivers. New housing or better housing choices are driven by certain, and for most of the younger household, it's about employment. I'll go there, I'll go to Oakley because it's nearby the hospital system and I'm going to work there. Demand for attached housing by both new younger households and older connected move down neighbors. Move down, I want to get out of my big house. I want something smaller. I've got a home in Florida. Could improve the housing circulation and prompt new growth. It's almost as if you're missing a piece of the housing pie with what you've built so far. That's not a criticism, that's what we wanted. But now I realize that's just one big choice for so many people, 92% of folks. Oh, there it goes. I came with 4 recommendations for you. Your manager said, hey, tell us what you think in terms of actual product. I'll start with one and I'll show you some of the background for this. I'd like to finish on the other 3, but housing recommendation number 1. I recommend a 2-course approach to balancing or providing the leadership to make the opportunity to begin to balance your current Delhi housing market going forward. One is assemble the expertise and resources to control attached housing growth along the Plan the Pike. Plan the Pike was excellent, and I'm a little bit upset with you guys because I was on the team that came up second in Plan the Pike, and I didn't get a chance to do that. Some other guys went out.
Number 1 now.
Yeah, number 1 now, yeah.
Okay. Great plan. The housing piece, which I don't have a copy of because I'm using Jack's computer, was some of my competitors' black and white paper with lots of tables of numbers and so on, but didn't really tell a story. That's what I do. Not a criticism, just what I'm going to bring you tonight. And second, support and assist in the launch of a visible, impactful site. Nothing beats picking the right spot, encouraging a developer to do something demonstrative that people drive by. Look at what's being built here. Oh, that'd be terrific, honey, if we could see if we can get a corner apartment unit while we figure things out. while your health improves, while our daughter moves back, while the kids go to Mount St. Joe's, whatever. People make these decisions around 5 different life events. So it's a tandem approach to let's keep thinking about the expertise, develop an awareness as the leadership of the township. And then let's support what I like to call a pilot project. Let's get something that teaches us how this works. We haven't done it in a while, is my recommendation. Let me scroll ahead to some of here's the excerpts of the plan where the planners and the experts picked certain sectors to say, let's go ahead and zone this mixed residential low density, and here's one for higher density up to 24 units an acre. There's a lot of product you can generate at 12 and 24 units an acre that work great. We've learned how to do a lot of neat things with attached housing in the last 15 years. Housing demand. The essence of what I bring to you and will continue to give you access toward is a simple supply and demand analysis. For the demand side, I want to understand metrically and kind of a rear view mirror look at who your households are. You'll recognize some of this. And I can use demographics. Everyone starts with that language, all your planners, the guys that plan the Pike. On the map, you see the pin at the entrance to the site of Plan the Pike. The blue shade is your township, of course. The red shade is a 8-minute drive in any direction. Just to show you that in 8 minutes to the site, you get the entire eastern half of the township, plus parts of Cincinnati and Greene Township. And when you extend to the next another 6 minutes, that green area, you pick up all the township, a lot of the folks in the north. This is sort of how the market connects to this site, regardless of that sign I drove past that said, you're now entering Delhi Township. Okay? I want to know all about who's in there. Now, when it comes to demographics, usually there are single metrics. Median household income, number of owner-occupied housing, they're all disconnected. And it's good data, but it doesn't really say much until you knit it together. I like to show it to people graphically. So here's total households today. Each of those little shapes you see here, this is a U.S. Census block group. It's defined by the government, but it defines a super neighborhood of about 750 households. You might recognize them as your typical neighborhoods around here. And I can see the concentration by that legend to the left. Here's typical household. Here's rental households today. Notice how all the rental households seem to concentrate east of the site. Here's growth since 2010. And if you see white, those neighborhoods were growing at about, I think, 2% a year since then. That gray shade, right over that center sector I described earlier, that shows a loss of households. During every year since 2010, those gray shaded areas have been losing up to 2% of their households. There's less addresses to deliver mail to. People have moved on, okay? I can show you, this is just for background, I can show you housing values, I can show you median household income. These are individual things that give me a flavor of your township and allows me to have some credibility with you as I understand what the metrics say about what you already know because you live here. But that's really not the best way to look at this. There's another data set I've been employed for 18 years, I'd say rather well, and it's called market segmentation. The PhDs call it psychographics. It's the merge of big data into how we live, and it goes from the individual metrics to a lifestyle, a profile, or a character of householders by neighborhood. So they mix demographics with school data, voting records, motor vehicle records, credit card usage, internet usage, travel, life insurance, on and on and on. And they use the same metrics or algorithms that biologists use to classify species of animals. This is kind of getting technical weird here. But the neat part is they can categorize anyone in America, any household, by one of 67 different ways you live. They call them segments. I'll call them a profile. And we all fit in them. It's how we live. What's interesting is not defined by age or income or your address necessarily. It means Jack and I can live in 2 different states. And, oh, by the way, they all have goofy names just because it's such dry stuff. Urban chic is one I'm going to show you. She's smiling because she thinks she's one of them. But Jack and I might be urban chic, and he might live in Mason, I might live in Nashville. I might have 10 years on him. He might have no kids, and I've got 2 kids. Doesn't sound like we're together. But when you look at how we live, we both love the Golf Channel, we're both outdoorsy, we drive a BMW, we work in technical fields, we stay in shape, we go to church. So we live the same way. And what's interesting, if I can define that for you, if I can categorize how you live, think about the most precious decision you make, and it's about your home, whether you rent it or you buy it. That means if I understand who you are, I understand your preference for how you'd like to live, what house you'd like, despite where you actually might live. Okay? So that's just a table of where they're at. And one of them I want to talk about is very prevalent, and the category is called midlife constants. In fact, if you see the pin and look at those neighborhoods, that's where they're dominant. Those neighborhoods just west of the site and due north of the site across the township. This midlife constant is a character that is the majority of the householders in there. Okay? Mean age of 46. They're smaller, sedentary households in older homes. Median income is about $48,000. I can find 2,200 of these households within 8 minutes of your site, just by data. I don't have mailboxes flagged, but I know how they're concentrated. Okay? And you might recognize how these folks live. Now, this is national data. This isn't Delhi Township data. But if we look carefully at what they're saying about these folks nearby, these midlife constants, you might even recognize some of them. It's not about age. There's not a specific spike in age. They're in management and sales jobs. About 75% of them own their home. The other folks, right about where we're at here, rent their home. So this is sort of an innocent profile of this type of household. It turns out there's a lot of you that fit this profile nearby. Okay? There's another one called, forgive the name, Rust Belt Traditions. And they're found in neighborhoods just north of the site and far out to the west. Their median age a little younger at 38. These are families with incomes about $49,000 on median, again, half above and half below. They stay in the same neighborhood. This is national narrative. Sounds like us, doesn't it? Okay. There's an interesting one I didn't expect to see just south of the site are younger, more affluent families, and their nickname is Home Improvement. And you find them at Home Depot every weekend. Mean age is 37. They make $67,000. They live in newer homes, and they like to commute to work because they have ties here. Mom lives nearby, and she wants to see our daughters, but I'll commute into Cincinnati because that's where my job is at. So they're more commuters. Their employment draw is to the east in this case. I can find 1,230 of these. And I'll stop before this gets boring. It means I can look at specific innocent profiles of who you already know you are. Last one I'll mention, traditional living. Notice they're to the east, 2,500 households. Younger, 35, they're your sons and daughters that stuck nearby and bought that home that's older than them. Okay? A group called Green Acres. The song comes in my head every time I see Eddie Albert grab his suspenders when I see this, but they're nearby. You have comfortable empty nesters, just like it sounds. 47, higher incomes, approaching retirement. And I thought, what's happening to the east? I noticed that you have this sort of 3 different sectors, and I wasn't too surprised. But when you look just beyond the township, everything you see in blue, here's a group I don't normally see, and I almost never study because their name is Hardscrabble Road, and it's just like it sounds. These are young, 32 years old. They might make $26,000. High unemployment, low education. God loves them, but there they are. And they're not people that we're going to migrate out west for some new housing for us. Okay? What's interesting was when I look at these typical segments, I found 4 that we just kept coming back to, and they almost represent your family or the family next door. The young couple having their first baby, staying close to mom and dad. The couple that likes the township and commute into Cincinnati. Midlife constants and Rust Belt traditions. And what I do with this data, for site-specific, imagine a development team looking, well, Michael, how many folks we got? I can set the dials on how much they make. Think about a hypothetical purchase decision. How much they need for income to buy this home. How much they need to rent $1,200 a month. The answer is about $55,000. And I'll set the dials and see, of all these segments, what filters out. And what I found is you have a pretty good buying power. Maybe all that West Side stories are true about money in tomato cans in the backyard that hasn't been dug up by Mr. DeLong yet for nuisance and so on. So we can look at, in this case, rental demand. I found a total of 2,800 existing rental households in 8 minutes that can afford $1,000 a month in rents. They're already here. They're in something. It doesn't mean they're spending that much, but they have the buying power for that. So part of the understanding is, okay, we know who we are, but what's our buying power and our preference? And what would they react to if we only had it? That's a wonderful unmet demand equation. And this is what really excites development teams and the people that have money to help them out. Okay, any questions on the demand side? I only bring this to you to say I understand who you are from a householder, why you love it here, why you chop through the lawn mowing and the debris and the truck stuff, why your leadership is here. It doesn't mean that we've been creative enough in terms of economic development to incite different housing styles here, according to Plan the Pike, or what we all know about our housing, that might make us more sustainable later. And I'm not offering this as a criticism or a comment to your township, but there's a city I work with that's near Kenwood, and I'll leave it there. And I remember giving a similar presentation, and a guy like Mr. Davis pulled me out afterward. He goes, I'm so glad you're here because I'm not sure we're going to be relevant in the next generation. We're just a bunch of houses. In fact, our only development we got going on is we're tearing down little houses to build bigger houses. Is that sustainable? Is that viable for us? In their case, we're working towards answering that question better, but the first one was no. So in terms of rental housing stock, let me take a look at your housing values. And this is a distribution of all your housing. I found and collected license data on 9,500 houses. And your houses, if you own your home, you're somewhere in there. That's just a simple distribution to show you the general housing stock. Each of those little bars is $5,000 in 2017 assessed value. Just a distribution. The median is $107,000, half above and half below, and 80% of your home are valued under $165,000. This is by year built. That vertical line is 1965. You can see just after the war, we got kind of busy. We built a lot of homes. Then you can see the cycles of interest, economic, good times, better money, where we built more housing. Less than 20% of your housing has been built since the 1983 Volcker recession. Here's by size, by living area. Median is about 1,620 feet, so they're smaller homes, they're older homes. Now this is the sales in the last 15 years, and interestingly, it almost mirrors your housing stock, 107,000 median, 165, pardon me. In light green is home ownership. You're predominantly owner-occupied, of course. In the lower, in the yellow tips there, those are absentee-owned homes, where, Mr. Luby, you bought a home, and at the time of sale, looked up, are you going to own this home? Yes. Are you going to live in it? No. It's a second home. It's my daughter's home. So it's a non-owner occupied, likely a rental house. Here's by sales. In the light blue are the same distribution. Those are resales. Little blue tips you see is new builder construction, about 4%, where you see my cursor. And then way up here, the tips below, about 100,000, are just a small number, constant number of distressed bank sales. It just happens. And then by type, the bronze color you see is single family detached. There's almost no condominium or duplex product. But in terms of how your housing market has been performing, I mean, that's the stock of housing. But how's it been doing? Has it been keeping its value? Has it been selling well? And so here's that list of all the sales in the last 15 years, and each of the little bar is the month in which it closed. It's sort of an activity distribution. And here you can see sales per month, clicking along, and then there's the Great Recession in red shade, starting December 2007. Actually, our market began to tip at that summer, in July. and you see what happened to market activity. And then what I've seen in every market since, New, Old, Westchester, Covington, is the next, after this was done, there were about 3 years where we just tried to recover. We still had a hangover and we couldn't get it done. It looks like this orange shade. What was interesting was that didn't happen in Delhi Township. Instead, right after that recession was over, we started very cyclic, regular growth, and we've returned back to our activity we had back in 2003. This is probably the best market recovery on paper I've seen in our metro market. It just means that the recession and the downturn didn't affect you much. It was a mild cold at best. And it didn't precipitate a lot of distressed bank sales, which virally lower the values of your homes. It was there, mild cough, but nothing to affect your values. Okay? But lastly, those rust-colored tips, those are the distressed bank sales. So having 5% or so of your transactions in the township be non-market, you got to leave, we're taking your home back kind of sales. That just happens, and that's not bad. Okay? In terms of rental housing stock, as I mentioned before, of all your rental stock, about 2,200 rental units, half of them are houses, probably some on your street. In terms of scaled apartments, only about 22% are in what we would call a scaled apartment of 20 units or more. We just don't have them here, and I'll show you some. Now, this is just an overview of what I found, supply and demand. So what I wanted to do for Jack and Greg is to actually put it into a platform we can play with it. We can analyze it. We can take your questions, talk to a developer, create a narrative and a dialogue about what the possibilities are, and look at the market together rather than pretend to understand the market, leadership, and development team. What you see in the violet symbols there, there's of course the perimeter of the market and the 8-minute drive. Those are all your scaled apartments. They're really right near the Plan the Pike site and east of your market. When I include all the rental housing I can find that's attached, a rental condo, some older duplexes to the north and apartments, you can see in that symbology, and I think this slide was in your packet of exhibits, that's all the typical attached rental stock. But since half of it is in rental detached homes, all those red dots throughout the entire township, your renters are all nearby, and their primary choice is another house, which means Mr. Luby's my landlord, and I got to call him to come fix something, and I got to mow my own grass. It's not the same experience as someone who's busy, or a graduate student at the college, or spend 6 months in Florida. Now, it's not a low maintenance proposition. It's, I'm renting this home. I get to live in this wonderful home with this great street and neighbors, but I got to take care of it, and it's not the kind of property management you enjoy in typical scaled sites. And just to demonstrate what we can do with this, working for development scenarios, talking about product, talking about incentives. I know that word gets tossed around a lot. We can win this program. We can zoom down to the driveway level through satellite imagery and look at very specific neighborhoods, get a feel for why this site is more visible and better than that site. What's good for the township, not just what's available. Okay, by example, working in Avondale right now for Beth Robinson at the Uptown Consortium, she has this wonderful problem where all of a sudden Avondale looks like a neat place to go develop stuff. So people are swooping in, finding sites to develop some condos or a few apartments. Not there's any rhyme or reason to it, because it's available. We're going to build something, we're going to leave, make a little profit kind of thing. So that sporadic kind of falling from parachutes kind of thing is actually bad for that neighborhood. We want to concentrate and encourage, like Plan the Pike did, to go to a specific site, say, let's concentrate visibly, take care of this site, and see what can be sustainable. We can step back and all of a sudden the right forces are at play. So before we entertain specific development plans or developers or incentives or how you might help through your leadership or your zoning, your encouragement, maybe even some sort of grants and financing, mezzanine help. And it's not just on the township, there's a lot of agencies that do that. Let me give you some recommendations I came up with and answer any of your questions. I studied the previous information. I looked at this, used my experience, and I offer you recommendation number 2. I recommend that you support an initial development that has a big splash, a 4-story multifamily site somewhere in that Plan to Pike corridor where it makes sense, where the zoning's just been put in place. Okay? This is 1 bedroom and 2-bedroom plans, or a 2-bedroom plus a den. Interior open space and amenities. No 3-bedroom plans. You got enough 3-bedroom homes in the township. If someone needs a 3-bedroom home, they probably have better rental choices nearby. I expect the base rents would lead the local market and tap into rental power of nearly 7,000 households within or just beyond the township. The product designs would draw from new township household formations, likely tied to the younger kids that want to stick around, and they want something new, and they don't want to maintain your neighbor's house. So, Mom, this apartment at $1,200 a month. We don't have kids yet. This is just great. We both work. We've got a nice place to park. And a smaller share of older moved-down householders, some of your neighbors who are in these older detached homes, who want to be close to the grandkids, and we spend time in Florida or South Carolina, and I just want to turn the key and go. I also further recommend the township should use all existing and maybe some new resources to assemble a suitable site opportunity. I asked the question earlier, and I'm not sure I got that I completely understand it for all the Plan to Pike. No one yet for this proposed, no one controls all those houses yet. Control means I could buy it if I want to. It's owned by 17 other people or something. It's a good idea. How do we start exacting some control? What agency do we form? What developer do we encourage? Who could be our proxy to start not buying them up, but putting them under contract for a future closing, let's say a year from now, an option? How do we control that? 2 things developers are dealing with right now. This is a sidebar. One is they're busy. They're focused on profits. And what they don't have is a lot of time. So if they want to be in your township, you have one of the guys that recommended me to you all, says, I really want to be there. But it's going to take me 3 years to assemble that site, get through zoning, find the financing. We don't have that kind of time. In 2 years, I can do something in Silverton. In 18 months, I can do something in Covington. I got to feed my machine. That's how developers think. Okay? Anything that we can do to find the right site and shorten that time, hand them an opportunity, not hand it to them, but give them a shorter access to that, is golden, and would make the site within your township rise to the top of their priorities. I'm not saying I have great solutions today on how to do that, but if we can say, we have these sites controlled, these 3 houses still need to be purchased, but we talked to the kids, and for the right incentive, you could probably have this all knit up and assemble the site in about 6 months. Then the zoning's ready to go for it. Let's see what kind of product you put on there, and all of a sudden you're helping enable them to do their job here, armed with real data, not just the stuff they saw on Zillow.com. That's what I provide. The other thing that's really hampering this is we're talking about new construction. You don't have unused office space that can be converted into multifamily, which is happening all over the country right now. Office space was a good idea back in the 70s and 80s, and now we don't work that way much anymore. So the Baldwin building, just near Eden Park, was converted by 2 famous development teams, and it's doing swimmingly. Nair Properties and Casto out of Columbus. The 580 building downtown. These are just downtown examples, but here was a shell that was there, and all I had to do was sort of renovate it. Parking was there, and so on. You don't have that, so what I propose, and number 1, is new construction. Here's the hard part. With all this downturn I spoke about, right there, what really shook up the market is we chased away the qualified labor that used to build houses for us. And we're clamping down on immigration issues. Costs have continued to go up, steel and drywall and bricks and things like that. That's gone up, okay, but to get an arms around the labor cost, to get the contractors, subcontractors to show up is really hard. and costs have become almost extraordinary for most new construction development deals. Just recognize that's a malaise that isn't going away soon for those that would build new stuff for us. Okay? So, number one, I'd like to see you do something visible in your medium density, 24 units the acre, that site. If we can get it controlled, because here's what happens. You get a developer to believe in, invest in the township. They build on a visible avenue. People drive by it every day. The chain link fence has a banner in front of it that shows lifestyle of people enjoying themselves. You instantly add, let's say, 150, 200 new households that are new and they're convenient, and you immediately get some of the younger householders and the older householders say, hey, let's try that out. Because the neat part about a new upscale rental, $1,000 a month, is my commitment's 12 months tops. Yeah, it's 12 months. You know, maybe we'll move on. Maybe we'll go back and buy mom's house, or let's try it for 12 months. So you can be committed to the township without having to do a 15 to 30-year mortgage in the process. The way we raised our kids, I know. But if you have children in their 20s, you probably already noticed they're pushing back on that whole, why do I want a mortgage again? Didn't you just take a bath on your house? And that kind of stuff. Any questions about that? First recommendation that for me comes right out of the data. It's demonstrative. It's not risky. It's a little lavish because I want you to make a splash and show the development team, the bankers, your residents, we're serious about putting something new in place. No questions? No one's yawning yet? Okay. Number 2 or number 3. After that, a 2 to 3 story rental townhome, rental attached homes that have a home-like feel, an attached tuck-under garage, courtyard configuration for privacy. Plans range from a 1-bedroom plus a den to 2-bedroom plus a den. If 54% of your householders have 2 occupants, unfortunately what we've done our whole life is we've been offered 2 flavors of houses. It's 1 bedroom or it's 2 bedroom. That's how we develop geometry. Yet with so many of our householders being 1 or 2 occupants, it means, I want the size of a 2-bedroom, but I'm not going to sleep anybody else here tonight. What I really want is a home office, or a room for my elliptical, or a room for the kids to come over on the weekends. So I want 1 bedroom and something else. But if that something else doesn't have to be a bedroom, if it could be a nice den, it doesn't need the ingress, egress, the windows, doesn't need the bathroom attached to it, all of a sudden it gets easier to make that. Or a 2-bedroom plus a den means I have 2 legitimate bedrooms, plus this extra space for mom to work from home, or for a media room or something like that. So we're getting playful with the geometry of these things. But a townhome product, home-like size, height and configuration, 9.5, 10-foot ceilings, nice kitchen designs, minimal hallways, and not a lot of outdoor amenities. We don't need to have the rooftop terrace and the built-in pool and the bocce ball court. We've seen a nice home. On that, and this is not in my recommendation, I want to tell you a little sidebar about how our parents and your older neighbors have begun to think about their next home. During the downturn, a company called Redwood Builders out of Cleveland hit upon this idea that older householders just wanted to be in something new. They wanted to be away from that old house. But dad's knees aren't what they used to be, so they would find very inexpensive ground way out beyond the suburbs. And they would build these nice single-story ranch, 2-bedroom, 2-car attached garage rental homes. They were nested in 4 units or 6 units, no amenities, nice little street. And every home had a 2-car attached garage, single floor living, $1,400 a month. Today they're in 6 different states. They, I think, have 30 different. They really hit a chord with our older householders. I want to live in a nice home. I'd like it to be new, and heck, I can rent that, and they got to take care of it. And we can go do what we want to do now. For our older households, think about your own neighbors. There's a discovery going on in the psychology of housing, which is, I've been tied to this house so long, and I want to discover something. I want to make friends I haven't had time for. I want to get healthy again. I want to go visit my sister in Pittsburgh. I want to do more stuff, which means I got to get out of this house somehow. And my kids don't want to buy it, so what do I do? This is common throughout the country. So for our older householders, this product that I mentioned is one solution. My third recommendation ties into that. A townhome style rental. It's got a garage, which is both car and storage. It's new, it's tall, it feels like a home. I've got a party wall, but the sound abatement's pretty good. And someone else is taking care of it. I think it'd be very popular here. More of a home, less of an apartment. This would be my second recommendation. It would serve the households nearby your neighbors seeking new construction choices, lower maintenance than a detached rental, again 50% of your housing stock, plus a large share of those older moved down householders we've mentioned. And number 4, there's a product that's not yet in our market. I'm familiar with it because I spent 10 years out west, but there's ways at 12 units to the acre to build nested townhomes in what looks like a nice big house. It's actually 4 townhomes side by side with garages in the back. And they look like large homes plotted around courtyards, 12 to the acre. It gives you the sense of home. It's got a front door, it's got a 2-car attached garage, it's got a great fireplace and storage. Some of my development clients are just starting to bring that product there. I think your township could easily evolve to that when it does get introduced, because you've got the perfect fabric of householders and older housing stock for it. It'll feel like updated home. And out in California, where I came from, I landed here 20 years ago to work for Henry Fisher and just kind of stayed here. But that was my first home in Irvine, California in 1989. This project has been around a while. We took up all the land building our 1960s houses. So when we get the chance, we ought to, in a third option, encourage a new kind of product that's even more like a home, because we're a township of houses, not apartments. These are product recommendations that I think serve your fabric in that order and in the priorities of developers today. It's not easy. We've got to assemble the site. We've got to shorten their time frame. Costs have to come down. They're not going to build for sport. Unfortunately, what's happened for a lot of multifamily developers is they'll find a site and they'll go to the city and say, this will all work if you give me the land for free. You buy it, you control it, give me land for free. Give me $4 million in incentives. Give me a 15-year property tax abatement. Open up your coffers and pay me to come in here and do this. Unfortunately, that's how the math works. And if you want new housing, bad enough, maybe you'll offer that if you have the resources. I'm no way suggesting that. But when a development team who has an interest in one of these sites, and perhaps one of my recommendations says, what incentives do we have? The first and obvious one, well, you're in Delhi Township. You've got a willing marketplace. You just got to build it. We can help you assemble it. We'll talk to folks. Maybe we'll form a committee that can help assemble this. Maybe we can hire a broker to do some of this, some of the legwork, some of the advanced work. But all it takes is one successful development like this. The guy that introduced me to Greg and Jack went to Silverton in a piece of property that kind of got assembled for him. It was an older commercial site. And they're doing, although everyone thought Silverton was a lousy place to be, they're doing terrific there, because it happens to be close by to a lot of important things for people that live in Silverton. So what I wanted to provide tonight, and I'm about to wrap up here, thank you for your patience and the chance to serve you, is that there are metrics and insights and proven approaches that help us understand with diagnostics who we are, what our preference for housing is going to be for ourselves as we get older, and our children, and people that are going to come to our township. We can get specific and start serving graduate students at the college. We can be specific about employment centers. We can talk about age restricted, 55 and older if we want to, But market rate always wins. What can we do now to start planning for and anticipating, showing some leadership for, here's some housing we'd like to see here. And it's not just another Ralph Meyer John putting some more single-family detached homes in here. Yeah, that's nice, but that's just an updated version of it's the same music. Can we anticipate, support, talk about Zone 4 and begin to assemble sites to let people that do this for a living with all their constraints do it here? And that's what Plan the Pike anticipated. Their demand model was sort of a vanilla approach to, if you have so many households and make this much money, then you need this. I think we can tell that today we know a whole lot about who we are and the fabric of our housing. I encourage you to adopt a commitment to learning more about where these opportunities ought to be, support their assemblage, a continual process of who we are, examples, focus groups, nothing that's any sort of ballot initiative or anything, but just get behind it, show some faith in some new housing stock. And apartments aren't low-income housing anymore. I guess I'll quit on that one. Mr. Lubin, any questions for me, sir?
So there's definitely some opportunities
Yes.
for developers to come in here but again, we kind of have to get started and maybe get a piece of land and maybe get it ready for them, come up with a prime site, where we want to start. I mean, that was my biggest thing is, I wanted to make sure that there was an opportunity. I mean, we all believe that there was an opportunity, but obviously we need them to believe that there's an opportunity for them
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
And it looks like there is.
And I'm happy to report that the Plan the Pike vision was a good one, remains a good one. That's a good spot to be. It's the intersection of all those four types of folks that are looking for a new housing type right there. It's shown very low growth of late, and yet just south of the site are the kind of home improvement families that would be interested in a site like that. So it's a good spot. If you didn't have Plan the Pike and you looked at me and said, where have we started? Put my finger where the Plan the Pike plan was. I mean, that's a good start. You found the headquarters for that. So how do we go to the next step as neighbors in the township in helping assemble a proper site, or the first phase of it, or the first 2 acres of it? Doesn't have to be the whole strip, kind of thing. Yeah, you've got a good beachhead. We need to put some policies and support in place to shorten that vision into an actual site opportunity for a private sector, profit-driven developer. Okay?
Okay.
20 minutes remaining. Okay, we got 20 minutes. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Davis,
Yes.
any questions or comments from
No, this was extremely informative in so many different ways, and of course, I'm sure that I speak on behalf of everyone up here. We have so many ideas running through our minds, and we're just kind of envisioning this and envisioning that, and where would you place it, and how could you do that? It's exciting, and I'm glad that you went with kind of the identity idea. Who are we? Where have we been? Who are we now? And what our goal is in the future. If you don't understand where you've been or where you are now, it'd be very difficult to plan that, where you want to go. So that was the first step, and I appreciated that. I was really intrigued with the number, it was 1,100, whatever, that people could afford if they had to, or if they went into this type of building or something. That was intriguing. That surprised me, that number. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
The amount of rent.
Yeah, the amount of what they could, and not saying that they would, but what they really could.
They could buy that, yes.
Yeah, that was extremely encouraging. But I also understand the quid pro quo. It's like you want other developers and things to kind of get in. Well, you got to put some skin in the game too and show them how serious you are, or you just, you become someone else like, hey, will you do this for us? And I understand that. I think that that's what it would take for us stepping up to the plate and showing, hey, this is what we want to do. And, the thing that I have found through Delhi Township in 53 years, everybody loves something new in this township, whether it's a new restaurant, whether it's a new site, it just creates energy and life and a good pulse. It gives it a good, I think things like this would be awesome. And just to show that, hey, Delhi's not going away. We are planning for the future. Again, future of the Pike there. But it's intriguing. I kind of want to unpack this more myself too and look over it and just kind of see what all we could do, because there's some good resources out there. And so I think it's very, very intriguing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How much land do we need to get something started? I mean,
Depends upon the product. I'll jump right to that. There's a critical mass. It's probably for the kind of second recommendation I offer, it's probably 3 acres, maybe 4 acres in the right spot with good access and utilities nearby. Okay, near traffic access. The hard part of many of these sites is the parking, either parking requirements or what parking is about. The structured parking, the concrete parking, and the build on top of it has become almost prohibitively expensive anymore. So it'd be on-grade parking, at least for a phase. There's a neat development going on in Covington where they had a site on either side of Washington Street. Coincidentally located right next to the very popular brewery in Covington, so it's like a built-in amenity. So they built the first 110 apartments, really nice apartment. It's called Duveneck Square. Go to Braxton, have a beer, and go walk around and look at this place. I can get you a tour if you'd like. But they also control the property right across the street, so today that is a surface parking lot for them. But phase 2 of their project, with city support, is to build a parking garage to serve that apartment and build office and some other stuff on top of it. So they're going to do it in stages. The first stage is get the units there, get the residences there, with some apology for parking. They still charge $30 for a parking spot, by the way. And then the second phase will bring in employment centers, structured parking, all the things you'd want. They're kind of doing it in stages. Okay. I'd say, depending upon that staging and so on, 3 acres to get started.
Thank you.
I just feel that what we need is for the first domino to fall.
Mm-hmm.
And that domino has to be successful. And that's setting the stage as to what we're willing to contribute going forward when hopefully the second and the third domino falls. Greg? I mean, but we're going to have to offer some type of pork chop in the beginning, but we've also got to be able to make sure we can do it to the second domino. So we have to kind of think hard.
Okay. I would
But-
offer that when it comes to Steve, am I saying that correctly?
CV?
CV? The car family.
Yes.
She tried to sell me a car on it. It's a beater. I think it was in the photo. Is that, yes, you've got to keep some dry powder. The best projects aren't just, we desperately want something built, so we'll give you whatever you want, make it easy for you. Realize that there's unrealized, monetized value in these projects. Hey, we can get a little more rent. You kind of have to nudge it into place. It's not about just throwing money at it. In fact, developments that are undisciplined and they're just using cash to try and make it work, that's like a NASA program, and it rarely succeeds because they overdid it. They didn't do it right. So discipline, monetary discipline, true neighborhood leadership. We can help you get there. And we, as a body of leadership, we want 122 new household units. That's great. We can offer this, but we also value the energy of there's a new place in town. There's a buzz. There is something in the press. There's marketing value, political capital, next phase leverage, next project leverage. Well, we did good. So that first investment, you really got to land it well, to your very good point.
Everybody good? Okay.
Let me close with, this has been a great opportunity for me. It's good to be back. I'm not second this time. To serve you all again. This is a process. This is not, I'm done. Thank you very much, and here's an invoice. This is access to your own market. This is a drone in the sky to help make decisions. And my role, as long as you want me around, is to be an advisor from other communities, my own 30 years in this business, my own data metrics, and speak for the market, be the advocate for the market, be your neighbor in front of other developers, other bankers. That's typically my role. So we're going to bring the marketplace into the room with the other people that are going to make this work. Thank you for your time and your leadership.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Jack, Greg, anything from me? Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. Any closing comments? No?
With no further business to be brought before this board this evening, this meeting, I move that we adjourn.
Second motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.